G'day, my name is John and I run this Gel Builder channel. This is my e-bike that I've been riding for quite a few years. In my last couple of videos, I made some references that I'm about to buy a brand new bike. It's on its way. I realized that after riding this for about 4 years, I have never yet done a proper review video upon this e-bike. I get so many questions from my viewers asking various different types of questions about this, what it's like to ride an e-bike, what the battery is like, what the battery range is like, how much do I service it, and loads of other questions. So I thought, let's smash out those questions, try to give out my honest, authentic answers upon this particular bike. And maybe some of those answers may help you. Maybe you're riding the old style analog bike and you're considering an e-bike. Well, hopefully some of the questions that I'm going to answer may help you decide whether the current model bike, the 2025 version of it, is for you, or just e-biking in general. So I hope you find it helpful. I've got about 20 questions that I've compiled together and I'll do my best to answer that. I really appreciate you tuning in for this video. Hope you find it helpful. Let's get into it. Please subscribe. This is the 2020 model Merida eOne-Sixty 8000. I bought this probably right at the end of 2020 because I wanted to get into e-biking and I wanted to get something that's a lot more aggressive. Now, first of all, let's just cover off on the price. The price at the time of purchase was $9,000 with a bit of wheeling and dealing through my local bike shop, 99 Bikes. I got this for $8,000. So for me, $8,000 was a lot of money to invest into a mountain bike. At that time, when I was considering buying a bike, I even thought $2,000 was a lot of money for an e-bike. And just before I get into the specs of this, let me just cover off on my other bike. So before I forked out the cash for the Merida, I bought a dual suspension bike, and that one was $2,500, but I got it for $2,200, also from 99 Bikes. But I progressed up to that from a $300 cheap Chinese bike that I bought online. That one was just a standard analog hardtail bike. I lasted for about 1 year riding that cheap Chinese bike, and that's when I did my research and I decided to get a dual suspension bike. I had enough of hardtails, and that's when I went with this one. This one's the Cube Stereo 140, they call it, and that was $2,200, which for me was a lot of money. But I probably spent about 2 years on that bike, and then e-bikes were starting to get more popular, and then this thing came out. And I thought, let's make a good quality investment. And I have to say, I'm still very, very happy with this purchase. Take a look at the angle and the frame and the geometry of the bike, all right? Isn't she a beautiful thing? The bike is made out of carbon fiber. It weighs around 24 to 25 kilos. So we are talking about a little bit of weight. Just understand, e-bikes are heavier. They got a motor. The components are more robust. So compared to my Cube over there, which weighs about 14 kilos, we're talking about 10 kilos extra. Carbon fiber, and it does have aluminium components to it as well. The forks here are called Marzocchi Bomber Z1 forks. Now, I'm no expert with forks. These feel fine, but generally these forks and all e-bike forks are more robust and solid than standard non-e-bikes. The travel in the front is 160 millimeters. As we move to the rear or midsection here, we have the Fox DP X2. I'm no expert with these shock systems, except all I know is that this has 150 millimeter travel. Very easy to fine tune. You pump it up over here with a shock pump and you can make your adjustments right here. To be fair, I don't muck around too much with that. I've only ever had to adjust it maybe 2 or 3 times. It's served me really, really well. The tires on this, it's what's called a mullet setup. 29-inch wheels at the front, 27.5-inch at the rear. It's what they term as a playful setup, and I have to agree, it is good. I do enjoy that setup. On my new bike that is coming, it is also a mullet setup. I like it. I think it's better than having a 29-inch wheel up on the rear for aggressive trails and various different terrains that you're going to be riding. I think that is a magic setup. The cassette, it is 11 gears I run a Dior XT rear derailleur setup. The brakes, the discs are 203 millimeters, both front and rear. The brakes on here are absolutely brilliant, really powerful, and generally e-bikes will always have a more aggressive and more stronger braking system. In terms of the motor, and I'm going to answer a lot of questions about the motor and the battery, this is the older EP8 Shimano motor, and it has a peak power capacity of 500 watt hours on that. We also have a down tube battery, and that goes inside of this frame. The seat on here, I've replaced mine, but the Meridas come with a seat that has a tool pack integrated into the rear. A couple of little Allen keys and that kind of stuff. I got rid of the seat because I didn't like it. This is way more comfortable and much better in my opinion. Moving up to the handlebars here. Nice wide handlebars. We turn it on via this button, hold it for half a second. We see our computer screen turns on. It's got its various modes right here. So it's currently off. We can turn it to eco. We can turn it to trail, which is its mid-range setting. Its most powerful setting is boost. You have a few different other metrics you can read just by clicking this button here. If you hold it, it'll take you deeper into the sub-menu, and you control it via the up and down buttons there. The Merida here also has a light, and that's at the front. This is a Lazine 310 lumen light. That's a piece of crap. Look, I review a lot of bike lights up on my review channel, and I can honestly say, for paying the amount of money that I paid for this, I wish their light was a bit better. You know, this is pathetic. It's good enough just to have a bit of light in the daytime. Don't even think you can be riding with that at nighttime and have any good visibility. That's just the truth. I don't know if they've improved that on their newer Merida models, but in any instance, I run better lights on my bike if I'm doing nighttime riding. So the way the battery cover comes off here is we push it up, and pretty much it comes off. It can detach. I've actually lost one of these, and it's costed me $40 to replace. And ever since that, I've actually always ridden with a Velcro strap around here. There is the down tube battery. To get that out, it requires an Allen key. I think it's a 5mm size. And up at the top there, you loosen it one way. There we go. And then out she comes. This is the BT E8036 battery pack. There is a button there that can be pressed to give you a battery life reader, and also to activate this battery. 36 volt battery, 17.5 amp hours, 630 watts capacity. To put the battery back, we simply put it back into its base and clip it in, and then the cover goes back on like so. And that's it. There's two ways to charge your battery. One is through the charge port, which is right there. The other way is to take the battery out and charge it through the base of the battery using a Shimano proprietary charging lead. If you're charging the battery itself, you will need one of these. Now this comes supplied with the bike, but this is a proprietary type of plug from Shimano. Otherwise, generally, if you're charging it directly into the bike frame, this is what the plug looks like. Now, I don't know if they've improved this upon their most recent models, but this is the one that came supplied with the bike. Let's now talk a bit about the most commonly asked question, and that has to do with the battery and the range. How much mileage, how many kilometers can I expect to get with this? Now, Merida advertised this 2020 model bike and this battery as having a mileage range of 92 kilometers. Let me just say, from the very beginning when I got this bike, it does not do 92 kilometers. Now, I don't know what world they're living in. I've never been able to ride this bike and get 90 kilometers riding upon the most perfect conditions and lowest setting eco mode. Maybe in ideal conditions, you could maybe get 80 kilometers out of this. Even after 4 or so years of riding it, I can get about maybe 70 kilometers if I'm careful how I ride. The moment you start punching it up into its different sort of modes like trail mode and boost mode, you are just simply draining the battery because you're increasing the power that your motor will be riding at and what it can output. So more power, more juice being used. In perfect conditions, probably about 70 kilometers is what my real world experience has been like with this particular bike. Now, bear in mind that is all dependent on so many different factors. So a lot of people ask the question, oh, how far can you ride? There is no one answer fits all. It all depends on, how heavy you are as an individual, how you ride, what kind of terrain you ride, how much are you swapping it around between the various different riding modes, eco, trail or boost. How many hills are you riding up? Some of you may know Queensland, Southeast Queensland, Wirralong Dam. Mount Joyce is a very popular area where a lot of mountain bikers will ride. There's a massive hill that goes to the top of the riding trails, and often mountain bikers that don't have e-bikes, they get shuttled up. Heck, even e-bike riders get shuttled up by a bus up to the top and this forward drive. Now, me and my son, we both had e-bikes and we probably did about 4 circuits, okay, 4 times going from the base, riding all the way up to the top of Mount Joyce at Wirralong Dam, and then riding down, then going up again. That's a monster of a hill. So that's a real world range if you know that area. Some of you ride mountain cotton biking trails. There's a really steep, aggressive hill that all the mountain bikers have to climb up. I think about 5 laps I was able to do. Then you're able to go down Escalade, Blacking Out, Westies, go down and then ride up that really aggressive steep hill. Probably about 5 rotations I was able to get with this bike because you are using trail mode and also bumping it up to boost modes. When you are riding up on flat terrain like roads and things like that, I would say probably about 70 kilometers if you're riding really easily, most economically in eco mode. That's the best way that I can explain that in terms of real world experience for this particular bike. Next question is, how long does it take to charge a battery? Realistically, 4.5 to 5 hours. Would you use this on long remote trails? The answer to that is you need to plan it out. You need to consider that this only will have, I think, around 70 kilometers in its most economical mode. So consider maybe even less if you're now riding up and down, more serious hills, for example, or if you're riding on gravel, that will impact how much battery juice you have. So you need to plan it out is what I'm saying, and it'll take about 4.5 to 5 hours to recharge this so that you're ready to go again. Let me talk about price, and that is to replace the battery in here. Now, this down tube battery, when I first got the bike, to replace it was 1,500 Australian dollars. That is some serious moolah. However, I have noticed now to replace this battery, I can buy a replacement for about $1,000. And I even looked, if you're a little bit more of an astute shopper, you can probably get a replacement for about $900, maybe $950. Would I buy a second battery for this? No. I personally don't see any need to have a second battery. Some people are like, oh, I'm going to be doing a really long bike ride. You're going to be carrying a battery, and the battery weighs like about, I don't know, 4.5 kilos or something like that. That's a lot of weight. I ain't carrying that. And I'm happy with one battery. I've been riding this, as I said, for more than 4 years, and it has been going really, really well for me. So one battery is all I will personally recommend. That's all I'm ever going to have with a mountain bike. And the last thing that I'll just answer about the bike battery is battery health. After having it since end of 2020, and now we're in August of 2025, what's the battery life been like? I can honestly say the Shimano battery, down tube battery that I've got in here is exceptional. I don't really think I've noticed much of a deterioration in performance. Look, and I'm honest in saying that I get so much life out of this, so much riding time. Now you have to think about how you're riding, but if I was to compare it with when I first got it, it is so similar. I have never felt the need to get a new battery or that the performance of this battery is failing. So kudos to Shimano for making, I think, an exceptionally good quality battery that lasts. Another question that is often asked is, how hard is it to ride if your battery dies? Look, some people don't really understand how e-bikes work. Some are throttle assist. This is not a throttle assist bike. It has no push button and it goes. I once bought one of those bikes for my wife. I have to say, it was a load of rubbish. We got rid of that bike, but I probably paid $1,500 for it. I don't know, it felt like it was going to fall apart. It was rubbish. Got rid of that, but that was throttle assist. You turn the throttle and it goes. This does not do that. In case if you don't understand what these style of e-bikes are like, you have to input some for the motor to kick in and give you some as well. The more torque you apply, the more power the motor gives you. And that's the way it works. And that's why a lot of people who kind of think, oh, you know, you're riding an e-bike, you're a cheater. The amount of times I've ridden up Westmount Cotton biking trails and you have these little teenage snotty-nosed kids and they go, oh, cheater, because they're walking up hills and I'm cleaning up the trail, just riding up there. They're going, oh, you cheater, and they're just stupid little snotty-nosed kids. And I always say to them, work smarter, not harder. Because the idea is, I bought this because I wanted to get up the trails fast and enjoy the downward rides more. And that's what this does. Think about it. If you don't have an e-bike, you are walking up those trails. And I get it, not everyone can afford an e-bike, but that's why I got this, so that I spend less time walking and I have more time riding those downhill trails and then just riding back up to the top. You get to enjoy it more. The people who actually don't have e-bikes and they don't believe in e-bikes and whatever, they'll probably only go up Westmount Cotton maybe twice because they are gassed. Okay, they go up, walk it up, ride down, walk up, ride down, then they're gassed, they got to rest. This enables you to keep riding and just having fun until the battery dies. But by then, you've already had a blast and then it's time to head home. So the question then goes, is this hard to ride without the battery? If your battery dies, look, the answer is yes. You can ride it without the motor working, and sometimes for me to prolong the battery, like if I'm riding down to the Gold Coast and I want to ride back, that's over 100 kilometers for me where I live here. I can do that, but there are parts of the ride that I have to ride with the motor turned off to conserve battery juice. But it can be ridden, absolutely, but it will be harder to ride. It's a heavier bike. Look, you're dealing with a 24, 25 kilo bike. There's a bit of drag there as well when you're having knobby tires. So yeah, but it can be ridden in an emergency. If your battery runs out, you can ride this bike. You'll just work for it a bit more. Okay, I want to just talk about what maintenance is required for this e-bike. First and foremost, make sure your bike is clean. I do not like to leave my bike dirty, covered with mud. Sometimes it might be like that for a day or two, but I'll always get out and give it a good clean. And that just makes sure that, you know, nothing remains on it or in its bearings or upon the chain or anything like that for longer than necessary. I use the gurney, a power water pressure cleaner, but I am careful how I use that. I try not to focus too much upon the bearing areas or upon the electric area, upon the control buttons, etc. But clean the gunk off, and the rest, you know, you can scrub it off and just clean it. So that's important. I always like to make sure that my chain is clean. For me, if I have a clean chain, I have a nice smooth ride. I don't ever go out upon a ride without cleaning my chain, probably every 2 rides. It's really simple. For me, I do like to take the chain off and I do like to degrease it, put on some nice bike milk is the dry lubricant that I use. I simply buy it from 99 bucks. Bike milk is created by a local around here at Daisy Hill, and I like to support that, but it's actually a really high quality product in my opinion, and I've been using it on my bikes for, I don't know, the last 8 years. I probably change the chain maybe twice a year. E-bikes, look, it's more aggressive. So there's a bit more wear and tear upon the chains. So about twice a year, I'll buy a Shimano quality chain, and I simply get all my parts and components off AliExpress. So I find that that's the best priced place to get it. A lot of people complain that AliExpress, they're all copies, they're all Chinese copies. Don't believe it, mate. They can choose to spend however much money they want. All of the parts that I've received have all been Shimano stamped and at a ridiculously cheap price. The other issue as well, why I get it from AliExpress, is whenever I've gone to, for example, get a new chain, buy certain brake pads, or get certain derailleur parts, or even the new cassette, my local bike shop either hasn't got it or it's going to take them ages to get in. And I order it off AliExpress and it'll come in 1 or 2 weeks. So that's my preferred place to purchase bike parts for this. I have had to replace the cassette once. So that's something else I did. The probably the biggest part that wears out are the smaller sprockets. Probably the first 4 sprockets is the thing that you will be replacing the most upon an e-bike. Especially when you're hitting aggressive trails, just expect that. Once again, AliExpress will get you the cheapest priced sprockets. I have replaced the rear derailleur kit here once as well, and I've replaced the chain ring twice. Probably the other part that you will be replacing a lot are brake pads. Simply by virtue of doing a lot of downhill riding, the brake pads get worn. Once again, AliExpress mate. Those brake pads are ridiculously cheap, but effective. I do not spend excessive amounts on brake pads. The cheaper ones from AliExpress have served me well and they work like that. They are brilliant and they are the cheap brake pads, believe it or not. Have I had any issues with the EP8 motor? Bearing in mind the current version of this bike comes with the Shimano EP801. Now this is a bit of the older model motor, and if I had to replace this would probably cost, once again, AliExpress, about $900. If something went wrong with the motor, $900. Have I had any issues with the motor? I can say no. The motor works brilliantly. It's gone through water. I've ridden through flood waters. There is a really good level of waterproofness to it. I don't exactly know what the rating is, but I have ridden through some crazy volumes of water. I've gone tunnel riding in this bike and water's flicking up everywhere. There's been flooding here in Logan City before and I've ridden and filmed in some of that, and the water has actually gone up. People have commented, oh, that's a great way to wreck your motor. My motor has never been wrecked. I can just tell you that, and I have been through crazier stuff than you will ever take a bike through. Trust me on that one. Just check out some of my videos of where I take this thing. One thing that you may notice with this, and it's been a comment on the EP8 motors, is there's been a slight rattle when you ride this e-bike. I think I noticed it when I first got the bike, but in all honesty, I don't notice it anymore. It's kind of like one of those scenarios where someone lives next to an airport or a train station. After a while, they just do not notice it. Maybe that's what it is. I simply can't pick up on it anymore. I have heard that the new EP801 motors are much more quieter than this initial version, the EP8s, but in all honesty, I've never had a problem with the noise or the rattle. Apparently, it's just the way it's designed. There is no major flaw or deficiency with that. I have had this bike serviced probably about 3 times in total. However, I do most of the major servicing on it myself. But a question might be asked, okay, what is the major breakdown or what is a major cost you've had with this bike? Well, let me list that for you. Like, it's by no means perfect, but as I said at the beginning of this video, I spent about $8,000 on this bike, and in that time, over the 4 and a bit years that I've owned it, I have probably invested $2,000 additional or on top. What was that for? Well, number one, I have had to replace the rear tire. The cost of the rear tire was $500. That's pretty pricey, but that's what it costed me. Only because I've ridden this in some funky places and kind of really destroyed the back tire, so I had to get that replaced. The other part that I had to have replaced, or not placed, but serviced, was the front forks. I had to take this into a bike mechanic who couldn't do it himself. He had to give it to a fork specialist, and they had to pull it totally apart, re-lubricate it, refix the seals in there, and then returned it back. And I think that cost was about $300. So that's a significant amount. And I think just the cost of tires, I probably replaced the tires once a year upon this. The cassette, the chains, the brakes, the bits and pieces, and the servicing when I've taken it into my local bike shop. Probably all in all, I think I've spent an additional $2,000 on top of the initial $8,000. That just gives you a realistic price range. Look, bikes, they need to be serviced. They need to be updated, especially, firmware needs to be updated on this. So just consider that if you are planning to get an e-bike. This is a heavy duty bike, so you will need to look after it, look after your investment, learn how to maintain it yourself. You'll save a lot more money, but sometimes there's a few problems that you just will not be able to sort out yourself. So be prepared to take it to a bike mechanic, an expert who knows how to fix that problem. And I've had to do that on occasion. Okay, let me just talk about probably something that's maybe a little bit more controversial, and that is de-restricting the bike. When this bike comes to you, because it is an Australian bike, our laws are that bikes must not be able to be ridden at speeds greater than 25 kilometers an hour upon the road. Upon mountain biking trails or private property, it does not matter, but you cannot have a motor that's rated above 250 watts or a speed that goes above 25 kilometers an hour. That is way too slow for me. And the answer is yes, I de-restrict this bike, but I de-restricted it to be able to go to what is called an American region speed, and that is 32 kilometers an hour. There's a few ways to de-restrict your bike if you choose to do that. I did it via an app called ST Unlocker. It will not totally de-restrict it to an unlimited speed, only to 32 kilometers an hour. Remember, the motor on the EP8 is a 500 watt hour peak rated motor. This is restricted to 250 watt output. So the motor is definitely capable of much more. I like to unleash the capacity just a little bit more, because 25 kilometers an hour, what happens, the motor cuts out and you're kind of riding and then it cuts out and you feel it cutting out and it becomes so annoying. It is the most annoying thing out there. Up to 32 kilometers an hour, which is plenty fast upon mountain biking trails, maybe not that fast upon urban riding, but it is a sweet spot in terms of speed. So that's what ST Unlocker does. It's kind of a little bit dodgy. What I mean is, I think some guy invented it over in Russia, right? But my son did it first, and then I thought, hey, heck, this worked. And so I did it. I think it costed about $50. You download a firmware version and upload it to your computer upon your bike, and then that enables the motor to be opened up to 32 kilometers an hour. I think it's the greatest thing if you're getting an e-bike. 25 kilometers an hour is way too slow, but I think 32 kilometers an hour for the motor to cut out is a sweet spot. Just keep in mind that if you mess around de-restricting your bike, you will void your warranty. I'm not concerned about the warranty upon my bike, but it becomes an issue when you want to take your bike to a local bike shop or a bike mechanic to have it repaired, anything to do with the motor. They will see, if you do not revert it back to a previous firmware version, they will see that it has been de-restricted, and generally speaking, they do not want to touch it. There are mechanics out there, you have to find some who are willing to work on your bike if you mess around with de-restricting your bike, but you have to find them. They're probably hiding behind a dark alley somewhere. I've got no idea. But your local bike shops do not want to touch it. And it's more of a, not that they're not allowed to touch it, they're not committing any crime. It's more of a store policy. They like to have a good reputation that they're not working on, your Suron bikes and all these new bikes that are coming upon the markets that look like dirt bikes, but they're e-bikes and they go at ridiculous speeds, like 60, 70, 80 kilometers an hour. They do not want to tarnish their reputation. So it's more of a policy thing that they do not want to work on those bikes if it's been messed around with or de-restricted. So keep that in mind. The other thing to keep in mind, if you de-restrict your bike, I came across a guy who derestricted his bike, not using ST unlocker, but using something else, and he totally derestricted his bike, and he was able to go 60 kilometers an hour or something, some ridiculous speed with this, right? But the problem was his cassette and chain wore out every like month or two. He had to replace his cassette. Like the cogs just get worn out. So that's why I think be careful. Do not go higher than 32 kilometers an hour. I think that's a sweet spot. But in the years that I've owned this, I've had to replace my cassette once, but the little sprockets probably a few more times. They're my most used gears, and they're the ones you'll probably have to replace the most. And that just comes part and parcel with de-restricting the bike to 32 kilometers an hour. Okay, in terms of a bike rack and transporting this bike, if you've viewed my videos, you'll see that I have two ways that I transport this bike, or my bikes. If I'm just solo riding, then I'll just put this into my Prado at the back, and I've sort of set up a way to have it inside that vehicle. But a lot of people don't have that option, and you need to buy yourself a bike rack. Hand on my heart, the best bike rack and best value bike rack that you can get, I've got the Yakima. The answer is yes, you do need to get a more heavier duty bike rack, because these are heavier duty bikes. This is the Yakima Hangover. Sorry, it's kind of upside down at the moment, but it's pretty compact. It's got a 50mm hitch. It folds down and it folds up, holds two bikes. Yeah, that's it there. I'll put a better picture up on the screen there so you can see it for yourself. I highly recommend this for e-bikes. The Yakima bike rack is exceptional. I've had the 4 bike rack version and now just the 2 bike rack version, and that's rated to carrying e-bikes that are around 28 to 30 kilos each, and you can carry 2 of those bikes up on the back. If you don't have any other way to put your bike into your vehicle or into a ute, then you need to get yourself a heavier duty bike rack. I recommend the Yakima only because I've been using it for so many years, and it's quality, and it's an exceptionally budget friendly bike rack to get for your e-bike. Okay, in terms of accessories, well, you do have to get, I think, some kind of a water bottle. This has 2 holes to carry a water bottle to mount it, and I think the space on this is actually quite good. With the newer 2025 Merida eOne-Sixty 8000, I don't really like the design. It's a different design where the shock system here is sort of from there to there, and I kind of feel that it cuts down upon this space for bike bottles. And it's just different. The newer version bike doesn't have this where you can put a mud guard. It's kind of got it more down there. But upon this version, look, I think it's ample spot to place a bottle cage. Other things that I've bought for this, I've bought a rack here that I can put my bike computer onto. It's got this undermount light mount there as well that I can mount a light. Upon the back, I've placed another holder there for the Garmin red tail light radar, which I think is absolutely brilliant, but I had to change my seat and get rid of that toolkit to be able to put it there. The other thing that I didn't mention was this has a dropper post. If you don't know what a dropper post, you will press this upon your left-hand handlebar, and this happens with your seat. This is exceptional. Some people don't know what a dropper post is. Once you start riding with a dropper post, you will never, ever, ever go back to a bike that doesn't have a dropper post. It's one of the best things ever. I didn't believe it at the time. I believe it now. I'm a believer ever since I felt it. When you start riding mountain biking trails, as you're going downhill, you want that seat to be down so you can potentially do jumps and just have a bit of fun. As you're riding uphill, you want that seat post to be up. It just gives you more power as you're riding up and just saves your legs from burning out. I think it's simply brilliant, and I've got one up on my other analog bike just the same. Okay, so just a couple of final questions. Is this e-bike worth the money? Is it worth the $8,000 that I spent? For me personally, yes. I love getting out. I love hitting the trails. So it all depends on you. It's a very personal question. Is this worth the money? Way back when I first started getting into biking, I never, ever, ever thought I would be spending $8,000 upon an e-bike. Heck, I've even got friends who have spent $15,000 on a racer, and it's not even an e-bike. $15,000 for an analog bike, and I thought, I spent $8,000 on this and I've never regretted it. I probably couldn't sell this now for probably more than $3,000. So even when I get my new bike is a different category of bike, but I'm still going to be keeping this because this enables me to ride on the roads and ride up on the trails and still, have fun with it. My new bike is a totally different beast. Another question is, would I buy this same model again? Before I purchased the bike that I've purchased and that's on its way, I was seriously considering to purchase the 2025 model Merida. I can say hand on my heart, yes, absolutely. I would buy this bike again. I actually prefer this 2020 frame, just the frame style, more than the 2025 version. That's just my personal preference. I think there's more space on this one for a bottle cage. But the new version, the 2025 model, it's selling for about $8,300. They reckon it's normally $10,000, but for club members, $8,300. That's from 99 Bikes. However, it's got an EP8 motor, and it's also got, a Di2 derailleur system. It means it changes gears electrically. So you're not having to manually push that derailleur. You press the button and electronically it'll shift gears. So I think that's a really cool feature. And I would actually buy the new 2025 Merida eOne-Sixty 8000 for that. Would I buy this again? The answer is yes, I would. I highly recommend this bike. I talked to bike mechanics and they think this bike is really good too. And that says to me something, because I've spoken to a number of different bike mechanics and they reckon it's a great bike. Now look, there's a lot of different bikes out there, a lot of different brands. I can only speak my experience with this particular one, and I think it's brilliant. So yes, I would actually buy this one again, despite a few little quirks and things that I've had to change over the years. Yes, I'd still get it again. So who is this e-bike perfect for? Anyone that wants to go and hit some more aggressive mountain biking trails. You don't have to be a biker that does jumps. I don't jump very well. I like to err on the side of physical safety. I like to come back home and not with broken bones, but this is capable. And I've done a few funky stuff. I'm not doing so much now as I'm getting a bit older, but I love getting out and attacking aggressive trails. You can do that easily with this. But this bike is also for people who want to have a bit more of a high quality bike and you want options. It's obviously overkill for road riding, but you can do it. But if you want the option of having a high quality bike that performs really well on dirt trails, gravel trails, this will do it, not a problem whatsoever. This is rock solid and it'll ride, it'll just feel like a tank as it rides, and it's secure, it's stable. I just can't say it in any other terms. It is a rock solid bike that feels solid on the road, and I really like that about this bike. One final question is, who is this bike not for? I don't think it's for anyone that wants to do lots of different tricks, big jumps, because it's a heavier beast and you need something a bit more lightweight, a bit more agile. Yeah, if you're that kind of a rider, this is probably not for you. If you're a rider who just rides flat trails, urban riding, just flat roads, this is overkill. This is probably not for you. But as I said before, if you want a good mix, and you enjoy doing your off-road terrain, really rugged terrain, muddy terrain, but don't mind also doing a bit more flat terrain, this could be a really good bike for you. It's an investment, yes, but once again, that's a very personal choice. Where does your money go into, and what do you enjoy doing, and what brings you a little bit of fulfillment and joy, just to your everyday life? What's your outlet to have a good bit of mental health about you? For me, it's bike riding, and that's why I got this. That is it with the video. I hope that I've answered a lot of your questions. I hope it helps. If I haven't, I'm sorry. This video, I'm sure, is long enough. I thank you for tuning in. I hope you got something out of it. If you got any other questions, drop them in the comments area below. I'll try to answer them, and yeah, I'll catch you on the next biking video. Thanks for tuning in.